Good evening. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. I invite you to use the chat bar and introduce yourself. Let me know what your greatest needs are this evening, and perhaps I'll be able to address them. If at times during the live stream you have questions, don't be shy. Jot them down. If you are terribly extroverted, you may ask me questions face to face simply by going to my Instagram live stream at meditate.jedi on the Instagram app. On your smartphone and tapping the request button, and you'll most likely be able to ask your question face to face in real time. Now, if you're shy, you don't have to do this. It's just an option for some people. What is the subject of tonight's live stream? Excuse me. Meditation for fame and love and letting go. If you find value in these live streams and podcasts and blog posts and class materials, numerous and free, I invite you to consider supporting this channel using the link in the description area below the live stream. If you cannot do this at that time, if you cannot do that at this time, no problems. You can support the channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell, by clicking the like icon, and writing a comment. These things are great for the algorithm and help the algorithm to bring this live stream to those who are actively seeking this stuff. So let's move forward. I'm going to begin by opening tonight's practice text. And as you'll notice, this is written as a Word doc. When you go to the downloads page, whose link is in the description area below the live stream, you'll notice that this is available as lesson 11, or it will be available as lesson 11 after class, but as a PDF. And as a PDF that has been formatted to be read upon your smartphone in the horizontal position. So to really get the most out of your reading a PDF on the smartphone experience, download the free Kindle app. That way it'll help with the navigation and the bookmarking and make it far, far less annoying. Excuse me. So, as we gaze upon the practice text, we see that the recommended reading for tonight's class, or after tonight's class, is "If we are short of temper, what is not our friend?" And once again, that is available. The easiest way to access or find that blog post is through the downloads page. Specifically, the 11th lesson entry. Now, I don't know if you are as old as me, but I can't say the word fame without thinking about the 1970s David Bowie song. That was a pretty cool song. So, how does fame play into the Buddha's teachings? Before the Buddha was the Buddha, when he was the monk Gautama, He studied meditation from the teachers of his time. And the technique that they taught was concentration, which is a compression of experience. According to those teachers, it is reported that the Buddha mastered their systems, but the Buddha was still dissatisfied. And that began for him a 5-year adventure in the woods, in the forest. And after exhausting himself with asceticism, he decided to look for the middle way between the debaucherous life as a prince and the dangerous practices of an ascetic. And he decided that concentration was too ascetic. And so he practiced the opposite. Instead of actively controlling one's experience and compressing it down, he did the opposite. He relaxed passively and vulnerably and allowed his doors of perception to open wide. And he was inundated with sensation and flavor and scent and sight and smell and sound, as well as with emotion and intention and cognition and memory and imagination. And so he found it useful to organize his perceptions in 4 categories or bases, which he described as body and feelings and mind and phenomena. About 7 weeks after he accomplished enlightenment, he gave his first public discourse. And in it he explained that stress was all pervasive. Many of the things that cause us stress are out of our control. But all humans have the ability to take whatever stress we have and make it worse. How? How do we do that? By striving to shove some things away, by striving to reach for some things that are not here yet, and by maniacally clutching onto some things that are here. And the Buddha explored this further when he gave his discourse that talked about the 8 flaws of the world. Now, 8 can be ungainly, and personally, I find it more manageable to think of it in terms of 4 dualities. So there's the duality of loss and gain, or pain and pleasure, or scorn and praise. Or there's the 4th duality of shame and fame. And of course, you'll notice I'm using words that are monosyllabic because contemplatives like to practice an economy of syllables. It just works out better that way. So last night we explored shame. Tonight we'll explore fame. Tomorrow we'll explore mind. So when we say fame in this context, largely we're talking about neural anatomy. All complex life forms on Earth, all complex animals on Earth have a brainstem, which I'd like to represent with my fist. And upon the brainstem sits a midbrain if you're a mammal. If you're a healthy mammal, each of us has a midbrain that is wired for empathy and cooperation. So we are wired to care very much about our relationships with others. This is not frivolous. Our survival throughout the ages as mammals, especially as primates, has depended on our relationships with people in our troop or our tribe or our village. this is hardwired into us. So 4 days ago, and 5 days ago, and 6 days ago, we explored how we are wired to shove away the scorn of others and reach for their approval. Not because we're weak, because we are wired to do so. Well, that's very external. The internal counterpart of that is not necessarily stressing over how others view us, but how we view us. And so last night we talked about shame, which is just a very concise way of saying, self-loathing, any form of self-loathing, any form of self-disgust. And fame is the opposite. Fame is self-esteem on steroids. And sometimes it can be very healthy, and sometimes it can be destructive. The key is not whether or not we feel good about ourselves. The question is, do we notice how we feel about ourselves? And have we found a way to harness how we feel about ourselves? To harness how we feel about ourselves in such a way as to fuel our love and our wisdom of letting go. And that is exactly what we shall explore tonight. I shall turn the page of our digital prayer, guided meditation, also known as sadhana, if you prefer Sanskrit. And this is basically an overview of what I just said. Lovingly wishing fame for all minds, which is sita in Pali. This is a subset of the 4 bases of mindfulness teachings known as satipatthana. And the idea of wishing others well is the second noble truth of right aspiration, or samma sankappa. The reason I inundate you with all these Pali words is not to impress you, because who cares? Any idiot with a dictionary can spout words from a foreign language. But hopefully to infer that these teachings are not my own. These teachings are the Buddha's. Now, the test of this claim is not my vocabulary, but the results that you generate when you apply these teachings to your life in as little as 5 minutes every morning and 5 minutes every evening for 7 consecutive days. As we gaze upon the heading, we read the phrase 1 quarter. In one of his discourses on the subject of loving kindness, the Buddha said it's important to wish well for 1 quarter of the world's population, 1/2 of the world's population, 3/4 of the world's population, and the entirety of the world's population. And of course, I'm doing my best to sort of pantomime the face of a clock. On the left, we see in smaller font what I like to call contemplative notation. We see the phrase in-breath, and we see the phrase out-breath. The phrase in-breath infers that when we notice our body breathing, we silently and mentally recite these 3 syllables, great fame for. And conversely, when we notice our body breathing out, we silently and mentally recite the 3 syllables, 1 quarter. I'll explain what these words are in greater detail in just a moment. Let's return to the idea of breathing. There is a myth, popular but inaccurate, that the Buddha taught breathing concentration. No. He taught mindfulness, and if we're mindful, we'll be aware of our bodies. And if we're aware of our bodies, we will notice our breathing from time to time. So we're not concentrating, we're just practicing mindfulness, gentle and passive and non-analytical. We're not practicing pranayama, which is a subsect of yoga. The Buddha did not teach that. We're not trying to control the depth or shallowness or rate of our breathing. No. When we notice we're breathing, we coordinate that breathing with certain silent and mental recitations. This idea is found in the Buddha's concise meditation manual known in Pali as the Satipatthana Sutta. Now, good news. The Buddha does not expect us to be Morgana the mage or Merlin the magician. We don't have to manifest things for anybody, including ourselves. When we silently and mentally recite Great Fame 4, 1/4, what we're using is using these words to just gently influence our intention, not our emotions. Emotions are squirrely things, and if we try to control them, it will not end well. But we can guide our intentions, our will. Our will is much more stable than our emotions. Our emotions are affected by a plethora of things, including the temperature, our last meal, the barometric pressure, oy vey. But our will is completely different. We can influence our will with this silent and mental recitation. And when I say silent and mental, I'm referring to feeding words to the mechanism we describe as our inner narrator. We could use our own voice, or the voice of a celebrity, perhaps Rod Serling, or Sigourney Weaver, or James Earl Jones. If you're particularly cranky, maybe Samuel L. Jackson. Or Lewis Black. So, on the bottom right-hand corner of the page, we again see smaller fonted words. And what these words do is, if these words over here serve as a contemplative notation, then these serve as a tabulatory notation. They help us to keep track. So, let's face it, we could count on a mala, but malas can get lost or stolen or broken or confiscated. I'm very grateful that many years ago an aging Bengali gentleman taught me how to count upon the creases of my fingers. So we are going to perform this exercise for one set of 4 breaths. We shall count our set upon our left hand and our breaths upon our right. Touch the tip of the left thumb to the left index finger's lower set of creases. For upon each finger, in addition to a tip, there's a higher set of creases, a middle set of creases, and a lower set of creases. Upon our right hand, we're going to count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right little finger. Let us set each hand, palm up, upon its thigh. Let us sit straight, head over shoulders, shoulders over tush, feet flat upon the floor, assuming you're sitting in a chair. On the in-breath, let us silently and mentally recite our Great Fame 4, 1/4, as we wish that all beings everywhere feel comfortable and secure in their own bodies, in their own minds. So, by the way, quick perspective. The Buddha spoke of the 4 bases of mindfulness, and as it applies to love, we could wish that all beings be comfortable in their circumstance, or comfortable in their body, or comfortable in their social circle, or comfortable in their own mind. And that's what we're dealing with right now. Great fame for 1/4. That wasn't very difficult. We're going to move on to our second of 4 contemplations, our second of 4 love contemplations tonight. We're going to replace the phrase 1/4 with the phrase 2/4. So now we're wishing that every being with a mind, or at least half the beings with a mind on this world, will be comfortable, peaceful, joyful, happy, secure, confident. Now, in Tibet, this is known as wishing love. And wishing love is fine. It's a great start. But we must not limit ourselves to merely wishing others well. It's important that we do what we can to make other people's lives suck less. Now, obviously, none of us are Jeff Bezos with billions to burn, but there's something we can do that can immediately reduce the suffering of thousands. And all that is simply, number 1, to choose to no longer kill other animals, to eat their bodies or their milk or their eggs, or exploit their skin or hair or fur or talents. Number 2, we can stop as consumers paying other people to exploit and kill other animals on our behalf with our consumer dollars. This can seem overwhelming to many people, but in the description area below the live stream is a link to my pal Mike's channel on YouTube. The name of the channel is Mike the Vegan. He spells it M-I-C because he's very cool, at least cooler than me. And it's a great resource to learn how to go vegan in a way that is, of course, good for the animals and good for the planet and good for your own body and even good for your pocketbook. Let's continue. We will count upon the 3 creases and tip of our right ring finger. Great fame for 2/4. Let us advance now. Great fame for 3/4. Let us count upon the 3 creases and tip of our right middle finger. And we come to our 4th and final love contemplation of the evening. Great fame for all quarters. And once again, fame is just a one syllable way of saying the opposite of feeling like dirt. Great fame for all quarters. Let us count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right index finger. We have completed our love training for the evening, and we begin our wisdom training. And the Buddha's wisdom is not necessarily the cleverness to create a longer lasting light bulb, although there's nothing wrong with that, but it's the wisdom of letting go. In order to facilitate this, the Buddha did not teach affirmations or self-hypnosis or believing really hard or praying or ritual. In fact, the Buddha taught that just 1 hour of mindfulness was better than an entire lifetime of ritual. Instead of doing that, the Buddha taught people to let go through the use of contemplations, trenchant and lowbrow and easy. His 3 most famous are known as the 3 marks of existence, or tilakkhana, if you prefer the language of Pali, from northeast India. We shall begin by gazing at fame through the lens of stress or dukkha. I mentioned previously our brain stems. Our brain stems are wired to steer clear of excess stress and strain. This is not because of laziness. For the majority of the history of complex life upon this planet, animals, be they reptile or mammal or primate, have been living on the edge of starvation. And so excessive strain and excessive stress is something our subconscious brain, our brainstem, is wired to avoid. So when we notice that, when we use these words, how crave fame, relaxing, to draw our attention to the idea that the ways that we reach and grasp after self-esteem and importance, part of us will choose to let go of that on a very deep, deep level. Now, we are all wired to do this. The problem is not that we do this. The problem is that we do this mindlessly. And so the Buddha's path is to notice when we do this and harness this energy so it doesn't feed our neurosis, so that it feeds our love, like we just explored in the 4 previous exercises, and so that it feeds our freedom that comes from letting go. On the in-breath, we're going to silently and mentally ask a rhetorical question. And of course, the power of a rhetorical question is found not in our efforts to answer it, but to the contrary. The power of a rhetorical question is found in our silent and mental and passive and non-conceptual recitation of it. If on the in-breath we silently and mentally recite, how crave fame, and on the out-breath we silently and mentally recite, relaxing, and that is all we do, we will move forward upon the path of enlightenment. The neat thing is we are already wired to relax in harmony with each out-breath, whether we know it or not. So by coordinating our silent and mental recitation of relaxing with our out-breath, we are aligning our intention, our will, our volition with our factory-installed programming. So previously, we were counting our sets on our left index finger with our thumb at the lower set of creases. Now we're going to advance the thumb to our middle set of creases. Just like that. We're going to count now upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right little finger. How crave fame? Relaxing. And once again, fame should not be taken literally, but figuratively. How do each of us crave the sensation of feeling like $1,000,000? So, by way of review, if you just tuned in, The Buddha talked of 4 bases of mindfulness. And so we talked about phenomena and our bodies and our social circles and what's going on between our ears. So this is basically craving pleasure between our ears. Let's continue. Let us now view this desire for fame through the lens of change, or anicca in Pali. One of the cool things about the Buddha's path is that it requires absolutely no faith. We see change all around us. Give your dog a bowl of its favorite food, and that food's going to disappear pretty damn quick. Every sunrise ends in a sunset. Every winter ends in a spring. So let's play with this right now. This rhetorical question is twice as long as the previous one. So we're going to karate chop it in half, and we're going to silently and mentally recite the first half on the in-breath and the second half on the out-breath. Once again, we don't have to analyze it or visualize. It's just enough to silently and mentally recite in harmony with our breathing. And distractions will come. Just sit back and enjoy the show. How could fame always change? Let's count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right ring finger. We come now to our third wisdom contemplation, where we view fame through the lens of not self, or anatta. Now this is where many well-intentioned scholars just swan dive down the rabbit hole. The Buddha never intended folks to get lost in a great philosophical treatise exploring the nature of self or existence. No. The Buddha kept it really simple. The Buddha's path was about letting go. And we ask, how could fame not be me? Simply to disrupt our habit of defining ourselves by fame. Just the way that we could disrupt the music coming from a phonograph by dragging the needle across the record. That's a very archaic illustration. You may be saying, what's a record? So let us count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right middle finger. How could fame not be me? We now come to our 4th and final wisdom contemplation of the evening. It's a very simple one. Notice fame relaxing. Let us count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of our right index finger. And so, in the span of just 4 contemplations, we've gone from craving fame to just noticing fame. And this is more than mere wordplay. Consider, if you will, a tornado. The outside of a tornado could literally tear us apart. But if we were in the eye of the storm, we'd be relatively safe. What the Buddha's techniques help us to do is not get rid of tornadoes, but help us not to be destroyed by the metaphoric tornadoes in our life by using mindfulness and relaxation to slip into the eye of the storm. And perhaps I should use the word hurricane instead of tornado. So we've just completed 8 contemplations, 4 concerning love and 4 concerning wisdom. If our mind was a dog, it would be panting. So now we're going to rest our mind, not through more contemplation, but through meditation. In the Buddhist world, meditation has many names. It's sometimes called Chan or Zen. Sometimes it's called Mahamudra or Mahasandhi or Bhavanam or Bhavana. Sometimes it's known as Shamatha. Sometimes it's known as Treksho or Dzogchen. Regardless of what you call it, it could be described quite simply as watching the play of mind and relaxing into its release. Now, that is as beautiful sounding as it is vague. So let me spell it out for you. We're going to play with this exercise, which is very similar to the last exercise. We're simply replacing the word fame with the pronoun this. And as a pronoun, this is deliciously vague. Whatever we notice, we can call it this, whether it's external or internal, whether it's pleasurable or painful, whether it's glorious or whether it's grotesque. It's this. Whether it is a sensation or a flavor or a scent or a sound or a sight, whether it is an emotion or an intention or a thought or a memory or a fantasy, it is a this. Let us advance our left thumb further up our left index finger to the third set of creases. Let us count upon the 3 sets of creases and tip of each of our 4 right fingers, beginning with our little one. Notice this, relaxing. And let's sit back and enjoy the show and not resist the present moment, but flow with it. We continue on our right ring finger. Or right middle finger. And our right index finger. This concludes the guided meditation portion of our live stream. Before I say goodnight, I would like to read a bit to you from the addendum of the text. Whoops. That's weird. Okay, here we go. Gazing meditations. In Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones, the phrase King of the Sky could remind us of the literal practice of sky gazing, where we could perform the contemplation, compassion, and meditation that are taught in the 16-week series of meditation classes while gazing into the sky. Any time of day we could gaze into the sky while meditating, but it could be especially poignant to gaze at the sun, doing so only during the first hour of sunrise or the last hour of sunset. In Sanskrit, this practice is sometimes referred to as Surya Chaku. But common sense prevails. Number 1, remove your corrective lenses or contact lenses. Gaze with the left eye for 4 breaths, then with the right eye for 4 breaths, alternating back and forth. 2, only do this for as long as it feels comfortable. giving yourself permission to progress gradually, such as adding 7 seconds per day or 7 minutes or more every day. 3. Relax the tissues of your face, especially around the eyes, allowing the eyelids to close somewhat, viewing the sun through one's eyelashes, thus occasionally giving rise to the illusion of subtle rainbows encircling the sun. Number 4, don't wander into traffic, for your vision will be dazzled after completing this exercise. Thus, while it's fine to practice this during mantra meditation, as well as the silent meditation, I recommend turning away from the sun during the practice of the closing, silent contemplation and compassion, thus allowing one's eyes to recalibrate to the ambient lighting. Number 5, recommend the lion posture, Simha Asana, feet flat upon the floor or earth, resting one's tuchus upon one's calves, forearms resting upon knees. Neither mysterious nor occult, this practice could act as a subtle tonic to your body. Yes, those were the instructions for the literal practice of gazing meditation embraced by many fundamentalists of Tibet's Nyingma and Kagyu lineages, but from the figurative point of view of matriarchy, the sky merely serves as a compelling metaphor for emptiness. For whatever we notice during our inhalation could seem permanent and independent and quite tangible. However, that self-same thing, when observed as we physically relax into our exhalation, could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless day. Let us now consider gazing from the perspective of the Mahamudra teachings. Downward earth gazing could be rather sedating, and as such act as an antidote to a turbulent mind. Upward sky gazing could be quite stimulating, and thus serve as an antidote to a sleepy mind. Straight ahead horizon gazing could be quite effective at maintaining our mental equilibrium. That is one of the reasons I will often set an 8-inch statue of the Buddha upon a TV tray standing 26 inches above the ground, about 2 meters in front of me, when I meditate while sitting upon the grass. I do this not to serve as a point of concentration, for that would only stimulate my sympathetic nervous system as well as its crankiness and agitation. Rather, the large statue at eye level serves as a comfortable object upon which to gently rest my gaze, passive and non-analytical. And that concludes tonight's live stream. I thank you for your time and your kind attention. If you have found any value in this, then I would invite you to consider supporting this channel. You can do so using the link below in the description area of the live stream. If you cannot do that at this time, then you can support the channel simply by clicking subscribe and clicking the notification bell, as well as clicking the like icon and writing a comment. Until next we speak, may you and yours be happy and healthy. Bye-bye now.